Linda Little works in a corporate environment where she is consistently overlooked despite being one of the most capable strategists in the company. She is quiet, socially awkward, and often dismissed by her colleagues, who fail to recognize the depth of her intelligence and dedication. For years, she has remained loyal to the company, believing that her hard work will eventually be rewarded. With the announcement of a leadership change, Linda becomes hopeful that her long-awaited promotion will finally come. She has been informally promised advancement multiple times, and she believes the transition in leadership could be her turning point. She prepares herself mentally for the recognition she feels she deserves. However, everything shifts when Bradley Preston steps in as the new CEO. As the privileged and entitled son of the former boss, Bradley brings a sense of arrogance and superiority that immediately disrupts the company's dynamic. He lacks experience, but carries himself with confidence rooted in his background rather than competence. Instead of rewarding Linda's loyalty, Bradley appoints Donovan, his former fraternity friend, to the position she has been working toward for years. The decision is clearly based on favoritism rather than merit, leaving Linda humiliated and sidelined in front of her peers. Unable to suppress her frustration, Linda confronts Bradley directly. Her boldness surprises him, as no one else in the office challenges his authority so openly. Rather than punishing her, Bradley becomes intrigued by her blunt honesty and sharp mind. Seeing potential in her, Bradley invites Linda to join him and a select group of executives on a business trip to Bangkok. Linda walks out of Bradley's office with a stiff posture, holding herself together just enough to avoid breaking down in front of everyone. A few coworkers glance up, sensing the tension, but no one says a word. She keeps her head slightly lowered and walks straight to her desk, refusing to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her shaken. She straightens up and walks away from the desk and heads towards the exit. The moment she gets inside, the silence becomes overwhelming. The tears come, streaming down her face, but even in that moment of vulnerability, she looks at herself in the rearview mirror as she begins to speak to herself. "You've got this, you hear me. You're enough just the way you are." The trip is meant to finalize a major company merger, and for Linda, it feels like a second chance to prove her value. During the flight, the atmosphere among the executives is tense, with subtle power plays and underlying resentment. Linda struggles to fit in, still seen as an outsider despite being part of the team. The situation escalates when Donovan decides to humiliate Linda publicly. He plays an old audition tape she recorded for the reality show Survivor, mocking her ambitions and personality in front of everyone on board. The humiliation cuts deep, exposing Linda's vulnerabilities and reinforcing how little respect she is given. The laughter of her colleagues creates a breaking point that begins to shift something inside her. Before the tension can settle, the plane is hit by a violent storm. Severe turbulence throws passengers into chaos as the aircraft begins to malfunction, turning the corporate trip into a life-or-death situation. As panic spreads, survival instincts take over. In a desperate and violent moment, Donovan attacks Linda, attempting to strangle her so he can secure a better chance at survival. Linda fights back with instinctive force, grabbing a fork and stabbing Donovan to defend herself. The act marks a pivotal shift in her character as she chooses survival over passivity. Moments later, the plane suffers catastrophic failure. A sudden decompression tears through the cabin, sucking passengers out into the open sky and leaving destruction in its wake. Amid the chaos, only Linda and Bradley manage to survive as the plane crashes into the ocean. The impact scatters debris across the water, leaving them struggling to stay alive. Linda manages to reach the surface and cling to floating wreckage. Exhausted and overwhelmed, she drifts until she eventually loses consciousness. She wakes up on a remote island in the Gulf of Thailand, disoriented but alive. The isolation is immediate and overwhelming, with no signs of civilization in sight. As she regains her strength, she discovers that Bradley has also survived, though he is badly injured and unable to function without assistance. With no one else to rely on, Linda takes control of the situation. She begins building shelter, finding food, and securing water, using knowledge she once demonstrated in her Survivor audition. Despite his dependence on her, Bradley continues to treat Linda with condescension. He struggles to accept that the woman he once dismissed is now the reason he is alive. Frustrated by his attitude, Linda makes a bold decision to leave him alone for 2 days. The isolation forces Bradley to confront his vulnerability and dependence. When she returns, Bradley is severely weakened from dehydration and fear. The experience humbles him, forcing him to acknowledge Linda's importance. Linda reinforces her dominance by demonstrating her survival skills more aggressively. She catches fish and hunts a wild boar, showing a level of capability that shocks Bradley. While exploring the island, Linda spots a passing boat in the distance. Instead of signaling for help, she hesitates and ultimately chooses to remain hidden, revealing a shift in her priorities. As time passes, Linda begins teaching Bradley how to survive, though she maintains control over him. She warns him never to explore the far side of the island, keeping certain secrets hidden. One evening, after consuming homemade fruit wine, Linda opens up about her past. She reveals the story of her abusive husband and how she allowed him to die by choosing not to intervene. The confession exposes a darker side of Linda, one shaped by trauma and suppressed anger. Bradley listens, but internally begins to fear her. In a desperate attempt to escape, Bradley poisons Linda's food with toxic berries. Believing he has neutralized her, he builds a makeshift raft and leaves the island. His escape quickly fails as the ocean proves too powerful. The raft collapses, leaving him stranded and on the verge of drowning. Linda, having survived the poisoning, finds Bradley struggling in the water and rescues him. Her survival reinforces her dominance and control over the situation. As punishment, Linda poisons Bradley with octopus toxin, temporarily paralyzing him. The act reveals how far she is transformed from a passive victim into someone dangerous. While gathering fruit, Linda encounters Zuri, Bradley's fiancée, who has arrived on the island with a boat captain after continuing the search for survivors. Fearing that her control and new identity will be taken away, Linda leads Zuri and the captain toward a dangerous area. The encounter ends in tragedy as both fall to their deaths. Bradley eventually discovers evidence of what happened, including Zuri's remains. The realization leads to a violent confrontation between him and Linda. Bradley finally manages to escape from Linda and makes his way across the island, desperate and exhausted, until he stumbles upon something unbelievable, a luxurious house hidden on the far side. It feels like a miracle. Driven by survival instinct, he rushes toward it, forcing his way inside through the kitchen door. After struggling, he gets in, he grabs a bottle of water and gulps it down frantically, trying to steady himself after everything he's endured. But the relief doesn't last. As he looks around for something to defend himself, anything at all, he realizes there are no knives, no sharp tools, nothing useful. Unknown to him at first, Linda is already watching. Through the house's surveillance system, she tracks his every movement, calm and in control. Then her voice suddenly fills the kitchen through a speaker, catching him completely off guard. She explains everything in a chilling tone. She had discovered the house long before him. When the first boat came to the island, it wasn't a rescue. It was caretakers dropping off supplies for the property. Instead of signaling for help, Linda followed them, memorized the access code, and broke into the house after they left. She stripped it of anything that could be used against her and turned it into another layer of control. As Bradley, still weak but desperate, continues searching for a weapon, Linda walks in, pointing a gun directly at him. He immediately switches tactics, pleading with her, calling himself the monster, even claiming he loves her in a last attempt to manipulate his way out. But Linda sees through it. In a sudden move, Bradley grabs a nearby object and knocks the gun out of her hand. He quickly picks it up and pulls the trigger, but nothing happens. The gun is empty. Before he can react, Linda strikes him with a golf club, hitting him with precision and force. Linda overpowers Bradley and kills him, securing her position as the sole survivor. Later, she returns to civilization, reshaping the narrative to her advantage and profiting from the story, all while holding onto one chilling belief: no one is coming to save you, and survival depends only on yourself.